the sound of ocean behind the dunes and everything. Then I said one day, the soldiers came with guns and they took his daddy away. They put him behind barbed wires with other men, all skinny and hungry, and they got chains on their ankles, and they looked real sad. Cal and his mother went to visit his daddy, and they stood on the other side of the fence, and they cried a lot. Oh, then he died. And Cal and his mother buried him in the cemetery with lots of graves, and they lit candles and cried and cried. After that, there was this boat, this really crowded boat, I guess. And Cal and his mama climbed on it, and they went down the river out to sea. Then they got on this island, and they got on this airplane, and after that, they came here to live in America. Cal was running out of space. He drew the map of America way too big, but he didn't want to erase it. So he climbed on a chair and he drew these high rises right above the rice fields. And I recognized the Transamerica building right away, a skinny pyramid beneath a rising moon. Then he drew a big old heart around it. Then he went back to the scene where the man named Ba stood in the doorway with his wife, and he drew a heart around him. Then he went back to the first scene of the two boys racing the water buffaloes in the rice field, and paused a little before he drew tiny tennis shoes on them. And I heard Billy say, "That's Bobby and his refugee boyfriend," but I ignored him. Cal loves America very much, especially San Francisco, I said. He never seen so many tall buildings before in his whole life, and they're so pretty. Maybe he'll live with his mother someday up in the penthouse when they have lots of money. But he misses home too, and he misses his friends. And he especially misses his daddy who died a lot. And that's all I think he's done. Thank you. And he was done. Cal turned around and climbed down from the chair. Then he looked at everybody and checked out their faces to see if they understood. Then in this real loud voice he said, "Hey, fuckheads, leave me alone!" and bowed to them. And everybody cracked up and applauded. Cal started walking back. He was smiling and looking straight at me like he was saying, "Robert Quentin Mitchell, ain't we a team or what?" And I wanted to say, "Yes, yes, Cal London, refugee, yeah, we are." But I just didn't say anything. Thank you. All right, I need a drink. It's very hard to channel children. I'm not sure what to do next. Questions?
Yeah, if you have questions.
Oh, comments, I guess. So. Cheers. Yes.
So how autobiographical is that? Yeah.
I knew that question was going to come. In a way, it isn't. The kid's personality, I actually identify more with the narrator's personality. I'm kind of foul-mouthed, very quick-witted, you know. So, but certainly I understand what it's like not to be able to speak the language when you descend into that world, and the deep yearning to be able to tell your story, you know. And in some way, emotionally, I understand the Kowloon too, but personality-wise, I don't identify with him.
What about the teacher?
The teacher, he's real. He's the real teacher. He's actually exactly like how he is in real life. He inhabits both fiction and non-fiction in my life.
When did you first begin to get familiar with the language?
The first day when I came.
I mean, how? Was there a particular program for it?
Oh, yeah, when I got to Colma, it was summer of 1975. And so they put me in summer school. So we had a book club, and my first book was The Wind in the Willow, and that I didn't speak English, but I started reading the British novel. Yeah.
How old were you when you came here?
11.
Can you just describe a little bit the difference, if you feel a difference, in terms of the issues that you deal with between writing it in fiction and writing it in nonfiction? A lot of those
My
kinds
boss, who's an editor at the New American Media, is in the audience. So, I mean, the first thing I could say is easy enough is that in fiction you can misquote people without getting in trouble. But I would say that it's a very different animal. I mean, when you write nonfiction, it's very much the world of architecture for me. Even when it's a pretty language, you need to have your central argument, your central theme, your supporting statements, your good examples. When you write fiction, what you need to understand is the human yearning, the desire to express, or what is it that this character wants and suffers from. So it's a very different form. It's almost like architecture to abstract painting to me.
Without asking you to identify anyone in particular, these two characters who are with you in this segment here, Bob and Billy and so
Yeah.
on, do they actually match up with real persons?
Well, you have a vested interest because your son went to school with me.
No, I'm not asking you to identify. Not asking you to identify anybody.
But no, the kids are composite. But you know, the funny thing about kids is that the bully are all very similar. It's almost they have the same genetic makeup, but the kids who resist them have very different personalities. I don't know why. And so when you hang out with the nerd kids and the library gang, as you know, Michael Carter call us, is that we have very quirky personality, but the bully, all they can do is wear this very static, menacing thing, you know, which I feel sorry for them because they can't be good actors.
They can't hide very well.
Yeah.
either.
Yes.
What is the bully yearning to express?
Yeah, but that's the interesting thing. Like, you know, everyone's, you know, tell me that I should develop Billy into another story. It's hard to know what Billy's yearning is, except for, you know, the communion with the father. Certainly, when you inherit post-traumatic stress, you inherit war in a way that you don't understand, because you don't have to go to war in order to inherit the violence that is generational. And it becomes almost like your karma, your calling to make sense of it. And if you beat up, if your dad, you know, in his state of panic or, you know, paranoia beat you, you carry that out into the schoolyard as a way to understand yourself, not consciously, surely, but as a way to figure out what happened to you. So, I mean, if Billy ever grow up and grow conscious of himself, he has to understand the trauma of the father, which is challenging, I suppose. Anything else? There's such silence. Yeah.
I'm also just curious to what extent you feel like your stories are targeted working through your own experience, you know, not necessarily in a autobiographical way in terms of the characters or the scenery, but just in more the emotional way, or, you know, if there are issues that you feel like you're either working through or discovering. Right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you do fiction, the reason why it nags at you is because there is something that you want to work out, you know, an emotion or an idea or something that has to do with you. But it's not autobiographical. It's more that, you know, for instance, there's a story in this book called Slingshot, which I'll read on Friday. It's this girl working in the Tenderloin, and she's foul-mouthed too. It's easy to write foul-mouthed people for me. I couldn't get her out of my head. I mean, I hear her voice so clearly that I couldn't put her away. I mean, it's funny because, you know, people say they hear voices and you think they're crazy, but I hear voices all the time that are characters. And when the more real they are, the more they nag at you to be born. It's kind of weird to say that, and so when they're so real in my head, I feel like if I don't finish the story, you know, they're gonna keep bugging me. So some of this work is sort of a way to exercise this spirits or whatever they are. And it's funny because when you write fiction and when you write characters that study and inhabit characters, it can be depressing as hell if you the title of the book is Birds of Paradise Lost. It's one of the short story in which it's an older man whose best friend committed self-immolation, and he has this wariness about him. And in order to hear him, you slow down, and then you inhabit his anger and his frustration, his sadness. And I'm like, shit, I just gotta get rid of this story soon because it's killing me. You know, like you live this sadness and when it's like character actor, except when you don't act out, but you imagine his mind, and it can be depressing. Yeah.
Are you thinking of writing a novel?
Yeah, I started 60 pages of it. We'll see.
It seems as if then you'd have many, many characters driving you crazy all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Back to Bob and Billy again. Do you see them more as actual persons that you knew, or do you see them more as facets of your own self?
I don't know.
I mean, do you have persons in mind that these actually match up to, or are they totally fictional persons?
Yeah, the only person that is non-fiction is the teacher. I mean, Mr.
Yeah.
K. But the rest are imagined. But they're not far from real kids, obviously, because it's all borrowed from
But do you
a
see them?
bunch of people that I
Do you
knew.
see these real kids in them,
Well, yeah, I mean,
or do you see them?
Yeah, no, I mean, there were kids like
Yeah.
this talking exactly.
But
like
do you
this.
also see them as faces of yourself, perhaps?
No, I was a nice kid. I did learn to swear quickly, but you know, it seems normal. But
Well, Bob seems like a decent guy.
yeah, he is. He's good, even though he doesn't want to acknowledge it. Yeah.
What techniques do you use to kind of channel those voices that you hear? Like, how do you create your character sketches, or how do you flesh out your characters?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I hear them, I hear them. You know, when I was at Stanford for the night fellowship, I half studied the arts rather than journalism. But and I took what is that? Acting, but what do you call it? Impromptu acting? Yeah, and improv, and it was really helpful because in improv I'm not sure you call it a technique, but you just lose inhibition, and then you just inhabit the character, and then somehow you allow that character to speak. It's almost like in dreams. You know, in dreams you don't feel like you're in control of the conversation with the other people and so on. And yet some dreams are so vivid and so memorable when you wake up. It's like that when you get into the zone, when you hear people and when they're as real as anybody else. You know, because like people in your past and people you create are the same to me, because you're not gonna, like, some people in the past you don't see again. They're just like people you created in fiction, because you know, some people I created in fiction tend to be more interesting. So, you know, yeah, they can be fully three-dimensional to me. Some of these characters.
With the sorry.
Go ahead.
With the characters, are you leading them, or are they leading you, or is it a combination?
You know, when I started out writing fiction, I had an agenda, bad me. But I had an agenda because I, as a Vietnamese refugee who felt misunderstood by America, I felt that I needed my characters to sort of lecture you people for not understanding us Vietnamese. And the characters fall apart because they don't want to lecture you. They want to eat hamburgers, they want to have sex, you know, they want to marry a white kid, you know. So they didn't do what I wanted them to do, because when you give them free will, they turn around and give you the finger. This is why I feel like God sometimes, because I'm always betrayed by my characters. Sorry, I'm entertaining myself. Yes.
You know, the Vietnam diaspora
Mm.
before and after 1975 has been so remarkable.
Mm.
Vietnamese have gone to so many parts of the world,
Mhm.
and it seems they've been successful
Mhm.
more often than not. And it seems that a person would have some pride for their Vietnamese brothers. And do you have some general comments to make about this? Or?
Actually, I'm jealous of the ones that are really successful. But pride, I mean, I can be very proud of individuals who made amazing strides in this country. Even when I don't necessarily agree with their politics, like this guy named Viet Dinh, he was Attorney Ashcroft, right-hand man, and a boat person who left Vietnam at 16, came to Malaysia, then came to the United States, and by the time he's 19, he went to Harvard, graduated, Harvard Law, became Harvard Review editor, and then next thing you know, he's working on CNN as a constitutional lawyer advisor, and then next thing you know, he's assistant to Attorney General, and then he wrote the Patriot Act. You know, this Vietnamese guy who escaped from a police state, you know, and I'm like, I'm really proud of you, I think. Such achievement. And then, you remember exactly what Vietnam is like, because you just impose it onto the Americans. But that's an achievement in a way. I interviewed another woman who, top 5 bomb makers in the United States. She's Vietnamese and a boat person, and I call her the bomb lady. And the first line was, she was always afraid of blood. Otherwise, she would have been a doctor. Instead now, she's a smart bomb maker making bombs, to go after Bin Laden. It's kind of interesting how far Vietnamese have gotten, and I'm not talking about their children, I'm talking about both people, So it's amazing how far and fast and furious individuals have made strides in this country and elsewhere. But as a community, it's a slow-growing community. There's a lot of bickering. There's lack of organization. There's a lot of jealousy and not a lot of collaboration. So individually, they excel, but as a group, it doesn't seem to hold much water in terms of politics.
I worked with both people when they first came here, and I found that probably generation of your parents had a hard time with and very definite political views, but that the children that grew up here have different values.
Yes, and that's always the tug and pull of immigrant experience.
And the struggle of it.
Yeah, the struggle and the negotiation, But isn't it always true that by the 3rd generation, we all self-liberated and then we start yearning for the clan, for the collective, for the we?
Because it comes so far away from...
And then that yearning makes us more American. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was fun.
Thank you very much, Andrew Lamb, and thanks everybody for coming out. And just a friendly reminder, there are books up front. If you want to get it, we'll be back here to sign them. And thanks so much, Andrew.